We need this.
They've got Randy Brock.
How you feeling this Saturday?
My sister said
We
he gets
right?
ice than you. Mind you, I'm in pinch fine for the next time. She's like, oh my God.
So yes, very true.
Where are they working out?
There you go. There you go. Ricky.
No one happy now. It's working remotely. I don't know that they've got it. Not in print. It's all.
I know Brian. He's staying at our house, and that's I heard Canada too. I haven't talked to her this week, so
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really cool.
People asking me if I'm really native.
he's gonna be so excited. It'll be a fun time. I have to leave for work. I have to fly out on Sunday. I have to leave at 5:30. Of course. Worst luck.
The fun thing is
That's true. That makes it a little easier.
If you were wanting suggestions on that one, that could turn into interesting.
Yeah.
And up all three of you.
Yeah. Clickety clackety got my nails done. I was like, this is annoying. Why did I do this to myself?
Microphone hears everything and it's zooming in on you. Just because you're typing?
It's too tight. We have recovered. It's always tomorrow.
Tick.
Mm-hmm. It'll come to order. Let the record show that all council are present and accounted for, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just to note, we are recording tonight's council session and we are live on the internet, so watch your mouth. Okay. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Yes, there are. On items for council action, the renaming of streets is being removed. We were afraid that people would get lost on their way home. Anyway, I'll take care of additions and corrections. Presentations. We have three wonderful guests before us tonight, and all three of them are going to give us a little bit of information, and being the gentlemen that we are, start ladies first.
Okay, means I get to start.
Well,
So Senator Judy Warnick, I was talking to your good mayor. I think this might be close to the 20th time I've been here in front of the council, except maybe during COVID years. We didn't necessarily come in person, but been elected for District 13 since 2006. So next year will be 20 years, but it's amazing. I never thought I'd do this in the first place. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I do, which committees I'm on, and talk about our district. It's changed quite a bit. District 13 has always included Ephrata, as long as I've been in office. And but now we have all of Grant County, almost all of Grant County, Kittitas County, and a little bit of Adams and a little bit of Douglas now. So, and those were all changed by the district changes. Yeah. Anyway, so committees I'm on Ways and Means. It's just we figure out ways to spend the means that you send us is the way I classify that. That's the big budget bill or budget committee. And I'm also on Human Services Committee, which we deal a lot with our juvenile rehabilitation, Department of Corrections, a lot on the DCYF, Department of Children, Youth and Families. And the other committee I'm on is Higher Ed and Workforce Development, and I'm the ranking on that. So I've learned a lot on that committee. I haven't sat on that committee. But I am concerned about our state as far as what we have done. We passed, I don't even remember the total now, but billions and billions of tax bills towards the end of the session this year. October 1st is when many of those go into effect. Our small businesses are now going to have to be paying sales tax to either the state or they're going to be charged sales tax for different services. And we just today, just October 1st, 3.6 billion in new taxes took effect. And we always get a revenue forecast about 4 times a year. We just had a revenue forecast come in September. We are already underwater, even with all those taxes that we passed and that we are going to be collecting. The very first forecast had the state down by $421 million. So it's a lot of our forecasts will show that we're going to be making money. We're going to receive more revenue, but we're not. The forecasts are pretty dire. And I think a lot of it has to do with companies decided not to stay here. People are deciding not to stay here. I don't want to see that in our state. I'm really hoping, and I talked to one lady today, she said, well, I can't pick my farm up and move to Idaho. I can't do that. So people are restricted geographically to where their businesses are and families and that. But I am worried about the amount of money that we're expecting to collect from our citizens and our businesses. So that's my big issue right now going into the next session. Next session is a supplemental budget session. And so it's a short, what's called a short session. We will be coming in not too bad of shape with our capital budget because there was a set aside at the end of when the capital budget passed, because that's all done with bonds. So we have some money left going into the 2026 budget cycle. So, but transportation, I'll let Tom talk a little bit about that. And then the operating budget, like I said, $421 million down just in the first, before we even got to the end of the year, we're down $421 million. So I have a couple of smaller bills I'm going to be working on that I had before, agritourism, which is important for the area here. Small farmers a lot of times need something extra besides the crops that they produce, and so they want to do a little bit of a tourism factor on their farms. It's been tough to get the other side of the aisle to figure out that. And then it's not necessarily something that you folks deal with, but girls' sports. I'm going to come back and talk about girls' sports and who should participate in girls' sports. I grew up in the Title IX era, and I don't want to see it ruined by some of the policies that we're looking at. So that's it for now. I'll be glad to take any questions. I really appreciated what you did here with the opportunity to have kind of a town hall. The last meeting I went to, I was on a panel, and it was with people from all over the state. They weren't allowed to ask us questions
Oh.
for some reason. We could give our opinions, but then they weren't allowed to ask questions. And I missed that. I missed meeting folks one-on-one. And so I really appreciate you doing that today.
I think a big part of our focus on this, Judy, and everybody else is we appreciate your work for us. We know how hard it is to wander over to the other side with one hand tied behind your back and try to get anything accomplished, so that the scraps that you send us are just well appreciated. And there's nobody that I've talked to around here who doesn't appreciate all three of what you're doing. But Judy, you've been running the ship for quite a while, and sometimes it's easier to walk away, but we appreciate and honor the fact that you've stuck with it. So sticking to the subject, if anybody has any, we're going to hear from two more. If you have a question specific to Judy, now's the time. Ooh,
I have one question. Judy, you said you were on Ways and Means and Higher Ed Workforce. What was the other committee you were on?
Human Services.
Human Services. Okay. Is that primarily focused? Can you help me understand what that committee does?
Human Services is, we deal with the Department of Corrections. We spend an awful lot of time on juvenile rehabilitation,
Okay.
and then anything to do with Department of Children, Youth, and Families. So
Okay.
foster youth.
Yeah. Okay. Any housing stuff in there or not really?
Not in that.
Okay.
I see a little housing in some of the Ways and Means, but not in that.
Not a lot. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
okay. With no more, we'll move on to Representative Ybarra.
Thank you very much for having us here. Very glad to be back in Ephrata. I don't know if you know, but I used to work for Grant PUD. So I was stationed over in the building just a couple blocks away and worked out in the gym with Mike Selleck and those folks for years and years, probably 12 years. So nice to be back in Ephrata, even though I'm from Quincy, and that's hard to say.
Easy, Alex. You started out so well.
Oh. So, again, so I sit on 3 committees as well. I'm on higher ed, just like Judy. I'm the ranking member in the House in higher ed and workforce development. Also, I sit on labor, and labor deals with farm worker issues, union issues, and just things like that we deal with across the state. So those are the 2 committees I work on. And my third one is energy. Again, worked for Grant PUD for 17 years. I'm an energy guy, and so kind of are very familiar with what the state is trying to do with their green energy policies and things like that. And just to let you know, I probably voted no on every single energy bill there is out there, because there's no way we're going to get electric cars by 2030, because we can only buy electric cars by 2030 or 35. And I said, there's no way you can do it. And they said, oh yeah, we can do it. I said, okay, do it. And so I just kind of say, okay, and you can't build transmission, you can't build this. Wind and solar is not good enough to bring to the state, because it's intermittent energy, as most of us from Grant PUD know. And you guys might not know, so back in 2010, there was Initiative 5937, which said that Grant County PD had to have 20% of the power being renewable. And that's when they said hydrogen or hydropower is not renewable. So we bought 70% of a wind farm in the Tri-Cities, and that rose our rates. I can't remember the exact amount, but about like maybe ½ cent per kilowatt hour. So that's a lot of, and we were only paying 3.5, and it rose it up to 4 because we had all this excess power, but the state made us buy additional wind power at a higher cost, 10 times more than we were making at Wampum Priest Rapids Dam. So my job over in Olympia, I think, is to manage the expectations of the green policies that they have out there, and to make sure that they know what they're getting themselves into. And so what's happened over the last 7 years, I've said no, I've given them reasons why. And this last year was the first year I got from the other side of the aisle that maybe the green policies don't work. You can't just put wind and solar. Nobody's going to build transmission for wind and solar has to be a firm energy type generator. And so what that means to us is what they did is they got rid of coal energy and they're trying to get rid of natural gas. And what that meant to Grant PUD is that everybody wants to come to Grant, as we all know, because we have renewable power. So all these companies came to Grant, and so we're out of power from our dams. And so now we have no power to give anybody. At the moment, Grant doesn't have the transmission to bring more energy that can be wielded off the transmission or move it from here to there. So we can't buy it because we don't have the transmission and we have no generation. So I've been working really hard to try to figure out what the next phase is. And what we're thinking it's going to be maybe nuclear or hydrogen. There is no other energy source to be had out there. Wind and solar will not solve our problems. So they've been working really hard on trying to bring in safe nuclear, because it's not like your grandparents' nuclear back in the day or your nuclear back in the day where the big giant towers.
Sats up. When that sats up over there, yeah.
Everybody's looking across the nation, across the world, they're looking at small nuclear reactors. They're about 300 megawatts, which is that's a lot of, and they'll be in a building about this big. They need about 30 acres, where wind and solar for 300 megawatts, you need 2,000 acres of land. Well, this small nuclear reactor needs 30. So, but that's where the world's going at the moment. People have realized that they got rid of all this fossil fuel too quickly, and now they're reverting to what's left. And right now it's nuclear. I just want to go along tangent on that because that's what I've been really working hard on trying to make sure that we don't get in a huge pickle. Again, we're some of the luckiest counties in the nation, and we want to keep it that way. We don't want our rates to be raised. So, and again, I know I went to a lot of information on energy, but yeah.
So with nuclear, you're talking about how much power?
Like 300 megawatts.
Okay, and how?
It makes about 1,000. Its capacity is 2,000, so it can make 2,000 megawatts of electricity if it was running full bore. But just in general, one of them makes about 1,000 megawatts daily, about 1,000. So it's going to be 1/3 of one of them dam. So if you buy 3 of those small nuclear reactors, 90 acres, it's about the size of one of them dam.
And that satisfies about how many, what size of a population would that take care of?
Well, I'm pretty sure that the power that we generate from Grant PUD can power Seattle. So we have lots and lots of power that we sell or have contracts with to power all of the things we do in Grant County, plus the power that we sell to other people. So,
And a nuclear would just enhance all of that.
well, it would be the only energy source that is firm, meaning it's 24/7, which is what we need. Wind and solar is like intermittent, so it turns on and off. Like right now, there's no solar power, so what do? You have to have some power to power the lights on, and you can't use wind if it's not blowing and it's not sunny, then you have no power. It has to come from some source, and that's why we have our hydro dams are golden. They're gold, and so we're very, very lucky to have them. And again, but we're out of power. We can't bring any more. We can't make any more generation from our dams. So the only thing we can do is permission to buy power from somebody else at a higher cost, which that means it's going to raise our rates. So don't want to do that. We want to bring in cheap power. And so that's the direction I think.
It sounds like such a positive potential for something like that. What's the weather on the west side with that? I mean, is there support or is it, yeah, but?
Well, I'll tell you what, a year ago, they said, there's no way you're going to bring nuclear here. And I told them last year, I said, hey, we're done. There is no transmission being built. They probably passed like 10 transmission bills. It passed generation bills to make it faster and easier permitting wise. And where's my transmission? Where's my generation? It's not coming because they don't know how the business works very well. And they don't listen to engineer guys like me. They just listen to the policies and say, we just want to make everything clean. But when they start talking to the folks that actually build and make energy, then it's a different story. And they are listening because everybody's out of power in the state of Washington. Everybody, not just Grant, it's everybody. Nobody has excess power to give. We're just out. So we just have to buy it now until we build more generation.
And that's got to be national because Grant County in our area is known for power. That we've had an ample supply of it. And then all of a sudden when we're out, we're 1/50th of the population. So I wander off because I really support what you're talking about there, Alex, and I appreciate that. Any questions?
I have a question. It kind of ties into what you were talking about with the EVs. If we're already out of power and we've got a mandate for all of us to go to EVs, how in the world, and we don't have, first of all, we don't have the power structure to do it. And second, we don't have the generating power to do it either. So is that helping the state wake up with the realization that you can mandate all you want, but the reality is it's not going to happen?
Yeah, so they're realizing that we're in the pickle, right? So what I'm going to do this year is probably pass some bills to change the law from 2030 to 2040, give them an extra 10 years, even though we can't do it by 2040. Maybe by 2050 we might get there, but get close. But we still have to get the energy, and we still have to get that transmission. That's good. Transmission's a good. The Quincy line's been 2.5 years or 3 years, and there's another 3 years of litigation. That's 6 years, just without building anything and buying anything or designing anything. 6 years. And it's probably going to take another 4 years or 5 years to build the line, and that's the one that's been going for. The plan's been in place for 7-8 years. And it's going to take another permitting wise, probably not, I bet you it takes another 12 years to get it all done. And we just can't wait that long. We just don't have the power. There's no place to get it from. So that's the dilemma we're all in. And again, trying to fight that battle, change the laws that are in place at the moment to change those dates from 2030 to 2040 or 2045, whatever it might be, but change the laws to make it a realistic law that we can get to. And again, without nuclear and hydrogen, we can't get there until, we're going to not make those laws happen. It won't happen, so we have to change the laws to give it a date that's going to be realistic. So. Well,
and one final comment on that too is that it seems like they're, from a transportation point of view, by going EV, we're already having problems with financing road, maintenance, and the majority of the funding comes from gas tax, correct? So if the more vehicles that are transferred to electric, the less money that's going to be coming in, and the more efficient those vehicles are, the less money we're bringing in, and so it just seems like we're not thinking ahead.
Those are the exact words I say on the floor to the other guys. Exactly what I said. Then how are we going to do it, you guys? If we don't have no generation, you can't plug in your cars. And just on the minutia stuff, right? So outside your house, you've got a transformer on your pole, right? If every house gets an electric car in their garage and they plug in, that transformer is probably not big enough. So the PUD is going to have to change that transformer out, and maybe the conductors, the wires from your house to the pole. They may have to change those out. So we're doing an analysis right now and getting that bill together to get that done with all utilities across the state of Washington to make sure that the PUDs and the utilities are all ready for the change to electric cars, if and when we get there. Because if we have to change out the transformers, I'm not with the PUD anymore, but the last time I checked, it was about 7 years out for a transformer. And then we have to change out every transformer in every neighborhood in Ephrata. Think about how much money that's going to cost us, how high our rates are going to go. So those are the warnings I've got, not the warning, but the realistic comments I'm giving the other side, just to let them know that there's a lot more to it than just, putting a date of 2030 or 2045. There's just more to it. So they just need to know it. So.
Thank you.
Too realistic, Alex.
Sorry.
All right, any other?
Have you ever participated in the summit that the Economic Development Council does here? I know that it's a fairly new thing, but I'd encourage you to participate in that. The PUD has a pretty significant portion of that, and they do talk about ways to generate alternative power and things that they'd like to do in the area. And hearing your perspective at a summit like that would be really helpful, I think, for people who are there. And also, the leadership there does have some different ideas other than some of the things you've talked about here tonight. So I think it could be really helpful to see both sides and really help people in the area consider that with growth.
Yeah, no, I definitely love to attend and get those ideas that they're coming out, but I have been talking to the PUD closely, probably about once a week. We're having meetings about what are we gonna do about the wind and solar plants that we have in town, the permitting, the transmission for Grant PUD and stuff. So we've been working really hard to keep in touch with the PUD and with, the brands of the world, Grant County development folks and stuff. So
Yeah.
we're really closely with those folks.
There's a lot of agencies that are there that help prompt some growth in different areas across Grant County. So I'm sure that you're connected with most of those. I think in a summit designed for collaboration and future focused growth, something like that could be really helpful to see alternative viewpoints.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Representative Ybarra. All right. We saved the best to last.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having us over here. It's always an opportunity and a pleasure to come and be able to talk about what we do. It's if you don't like people, you really don't want this job. And it's really necessary to see people so you know what their challenges are and what they'd like us to work on and to do. So I serve on 3 committees as well. I serve on the ranking member on the Ag and Natural Resources Committee, which we deal with all things agriculture, and that also includes forests and trees, those things, okay? So that's a great committee. I'm on the Early Learning and Human Services Committee, which is similar to the committee that Senator Warnick serves on around human services, but we deal with foster care, child welfare, these kind of issues on that committee. And also we have juvenile justice in there too. And we oversee like Green Hill, we get to have something to do with that. And then I'm on the Transportation Committee. So, which is a great committee. It's a financial committee, but it's a great committee because we do things there, okay? Like we build roads, and we have projects and we really, it's more of a hands-on talk about how we can make things better for folks committee. So you talk about the roads. Well, incidentally, there's a lot of contention between people who own electric cars because they don't want to pay their $200 a year fee because they don't use fuel and they think they should skate. And then the folks that have to buy fossil fuel and are paying $700 or $800 a year in taxes think that they should pay more. And so what we came up with, and some of the folks at ONG came up with a mileage tax. You probably heard about that this year. And so we had a hearing on the mileage tax, and that would have, but it's not really going to do away with the per gallon tax. It's going to be another tax. They've kind of hinted that they'll do away with it, but it doesn't say that in the bill. Okay, it doesn't say it's going away. They just are going to find a new way. And the reason they're doing it is because you're right, revenues have fallen in our gas structure, and that's the money that we use to build roads. Okay. And then the maintenance comes out of a different pot of money. Okay, that comes out of our general fund. So the idea behind the mileage tax was to have a way to pay for our maintenance and of our roads, and we're way behind. We're really behind. And that's the one thing that you learn when you're in there, and we have these tours, and then you really get a chance to see it. But the example that I use is there's 3,000 bridges in the state of Washington. Okay? 2,500 of them need attention. Okay. And if you're going over the Vantage Bridge, you can see that we're working on that now. But the Vernita Bridge really isn't in much better shape than the Vantage Bridge, okay? And it needs attention, and it's not on the list anywhere yet. So give you an idea of what's out there. Those are some of our challenges that we're having to deal with. And so that's kind of where the mileage stack idea came from, as far as the folks that ran the bill. And but the real challenges with it is, number one, how do you do that? How do you decide how many miles people are driving? And people have the tendency to kind of think that's private business, private knowledge, right? And I was interviewed by the college students over in Ellensburg this morning on the same bill, and I asked him, I said, well, you want your dad to know how many miles you drive in his car while you're over here at school? And they all agreed that they didn't want the mileage tax. But that's one of the challenges, is how can we do that? And we had a hearing on that bill, and we had thousands of people testify, no way. And we had less than 1,000 people thought it was a good idea. There just wasn't any movement, any support really statewide that you thought. So I think it's back to the drawing board on that to figure out how we could do revenue to pay for our roads. And one of the things is we have the Climate Commitment Act that is generating a lot of money but we get very little of it in transportation. And I personally think if we're gonna have this tax or this, they call it a fee, but if they take money from people and put it in the state coffers, that's a tax to me, okay? So if we're gonna have this tax and it's coming off of basically from refineries, then we should be able to spend it on roads. And I think that's where we should go. And I think that's what we're gonna push for as we go into the future. Is there a bill to do that? No, not at this moment, but there's some talk about how do we get more of that CCA money into the transportation system because it is so desperately needed. And it seems as though we can't catch up. You know, we're not catching up with our transportation needs. I mean, we're just, so this was my 11th year in the legislature. And I think the roads are more congested this year than they were my first year that I went over there. Yeah, we've done a lot of work and we've made them a lot better. But they just seem like it's just snowballing out of this all the time. So I think it's going to be a lot of talk how we can do that. And I don't have an answer. If you have some good ideas, I'm open to talk about that and what would look like for some transportation revenue. So there's this today, some new bills went into effect. Tax preference bill went into effect. It will change how some of our tax preferences work and how we can keep them or not. And that will cost us it's going to cost us some money. But the sales tax bill, extending the sales tax to different services and different retail goods is going into effect as well today. And that's going to cost all of us something. And the students, they were asking me, what's it going to cost us? And every time there's a sales tax on something, it costs us because the businessman isn't paying that, he's passing that on. And that's how it has to work. So, and we know that, but it's going to be a challenge there. This was, and I'm talking about another, there was also a transportation revenue bill, 5801. And inside the bill, and we'll just use this for example, people that are moving away. It did raise some more revenue for our transportation system and puts it in different places. But one of the taxes it raises is a luxury tax on corporate aircraft, or on aircraft that are valued more than $500,000 value. Okay, and so any part of the value of that aircraft that is over $500,000, you pay a 10% fee on. So if you happen to be a corporation and you have a $2 million jet, you're going to be paying tax on $1.5 million, 10%. Okay, well, there's a company down in Poland that has 5 corporate airplanes. Okay, they were planning on building a new hangar out at the Pullman Airport, and that hangar was, I think, around $5 million to build that. And I mean, they've been there forever. And with this new tax that has come in, they drove over to Lewiston and rented a piece of property over there to build their hangar. And they're going to build it for $1.5 million less. And they're moving airplanes. And they can do that because they also are licensed in Idaho. So Washington won't be able to touch them because they said enough is enough. Okay. And they're incorporated in Idaho as well. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them begin to move more of their operation there because, I'm working hard to change that. It's one of my priorities for this year is to change that luxury tax on these aircraft because most of these aircraft are used in commerce, right? They're not toys. They're used in furtherance of commerce. I mean, and I did that for years. I mean, some of you know that I flew airplanes. That was my job, and I'm working hard. That's one of my priorities. Fix that. And I talked to these folks over there, and I said, "Don't move yet. It doesn't go into effect until way next summer." Tom, we're done. Was the answer. We're just done, and that concerns me a lot. That they're giving up on us. Because this is my home. I don't know if many of you, I'm sure it's your home too. And how do we walk away from our home, our home state? It's hard for me to think about doing. And as the Senator Warning said, somebody was saying, how do I move my farm? Well, I've got a ranch over there too, and I can't move that either, right? And it's like, well, I'm heavily invested here and I like it, and I'm in a position that I could make a difference. So I don't want to leave either. But sometimes I understand where they're coming from. So those are some of the challenges that we face. And this year was a particularly contentious session, probably the most contentious session that I've seen since I've been there, even though, and I say, well, I felt like personally I had a lot of success. I was able to do a lot of things, but the contention and the challenges and the anger in the chambers were not like I've seen in the past. And we also, in the House, we had 23 freshmen, so 23 new people to come in that really don't know how it works. And I think in the Senate I counted 10. As I believe. So a lot of new people that were there that makes it harder for us to do our job. because we're spending more time with them to help them understand what the job really is. So, and I don't see where this short session will be much different. Because short sessions can be a little crazy anyway, and then with some new people, it's going to be a bigger challenge. But I want to give you the ask was to give you an overview of kind of what we went through. But I was on the. I'm disappointed in our governor. I was asked to be. He asked me to be on his transition team when he was first elected, and I did that. And one of the things that we talked about a lot in our meetings, what he talked about, was we cannot. This budget and the spending is not sustainable. We have to fix this. And he had asked every agency to cut by 6%. And he did clarify and said, well, if you can't cut 6%, you can only cut 5%, maybe you can cut 7%. Okay, we'll make this work. Somehow we'll balance this out. That was the marching order for the agencies. And well, that didn't happen. They all cut some, but they didn't get anywhere near 6%. And then to sign the largest tax increases in the history of the state of Washington was a little disappointing for all the work I put in on the transition committee. I was expecting more, so I guess my expectations got out of line, right? But we did work hard on that, and I'm interesting to see where he goes. But I think it was just a big push to make changes in our state. So I think next year we're going to see a lot more changes. There's a lot of, what I understand today, with these new taxes rolled out, there's a lot of unhappiness on the other side of our state. And the Seattle Times editorial board I heard was really uptight about some of this stuff. So that might be some good news, but for right now, it doesn't look real rosy. But I think sometimes that's what it takes to make a change. And I think we have to be realistic about where we spend our money. And that was what we talked about in the transition committee, was prioritize our spending. Let's be realistic, what we can afford and what we can do. And that's what we didn't see. I'm chairman and co-chair of the Wildfire Caucus, and it was funding cut. On 1198 or 1168 was a bill we passed a few years ago to fund DNR, and it was $20 million, I think, a year. And that's not right. It was bigger than that. But they cut it in half. They cut the funding in half this year. We've normally, last year in 2024, we had 44 aircraft out there on initial attack for our wildfires. And the highest number I saw this year, I think, was 33. And then it dropped not too long after that down to 27. And it's under 20 now. And we still have major fires burning. So for some reason, we've decided to pull back on that, which concerns me a lot. We need to work on that harder. So continue to do that. And for those of you interested in fire, I told Jeremy a little bit ago that we're having a wildfire caucus meeting in Spokane on October 9th, and you're all invited. Starts at 1 o'clock. So at the Aeroflight hangar on International Airport. But working hard on wildfire. Wildfire is more than putting out fires. It's about forest health. It's about, our children's future, our natural resources, and why are we burning up our natural resources? I'm like you folks. I live in the desert, and I didn't know anything about forest fires till I got this job. But to burn down our natural resources, to me, is just unthinkable, right? It's important that we keep them. So two other things, and then I'll be quiet. Maybe not. No. I'm already catching from these guys anyway. She's kicking me on the table here. So one of the things that I'm really passionate about is mental health and the challenges we face with our young people in mental health. But more than that, mental health, I think, is probably, the more I study it, the more I see it's probably our number one issue we have in the country today is our mental health challenges. And agricultural mental health and suicide is a big deal in the country. The agricultural sector has the highest rate of suicide of any sector in the country. Okay. Well, agriculture is rural. We're all rural. Okay. And that's here and it's real. And it's more of it happens than sometimes we know, because sometimes it's called something else, right? Because there's still a stigma attached to that. So a couple of years ago, I've been working on this since J.T. Wilcox. He was our former minority leader, and he was kind of a passionate for that too. They have Wilcox Farms over on the coast. And so I think it was in 2017, he ran a bill to look at agricultural suicides and issues. And then shortly after that, the bill was passed, it put together a committee. And then shortly after that, he was elected to be our minority leader. So he asked me to carry the water on this, and I'm still carrying it. So a couple of years ago, Representative Schmick and I put together a proviso to put a study group together to understand the issues around agricultural mental health and suicides. And our study came out, was finished in June 1st of this year. If anybody gets my email updates, the last email update had a link, but it's in there, and I'll be glad to send it to you. But we looked at what the issues are, and what we find is the number one issue around our agricultural suicides is overregulation. Imagine that. Because, you know, it puts such a big load on our agriculture producers and the people out there that pretty soon they can't carry the load any longer. Well, that overregulation extends into just about everything we do in the state. And I'll use childcare for an example because it's something else that I worked on real hard. Childcare, to make a childcare center, to open one today, they will give you a 900-page manual of things you have to do in order to open a childcare center. 900 pages. And then what they're going to come and check you on every month when they come to see if you're doing it right is a manual that's 100 pages long. Well, who wants to do that? You know, who wants to be in an industry that works you that hard to control? And you know, you could go through about everything there is to, and you'll find this in about every agency we have. So it's something that I'm going to be working on in the future. So how do we look at this overregulation and make a difference? You know, and I think that's something that's really important that we do for all of us in the state. And the last, I have something that's good, I think is a bright spot. So a couple of years ago, our Lieutenant Governor, Denny Heck, put together a resolution, and the Senate now has passed it, to form a Civics Health Committee to look at how we could learn to work together and get along better. Okay. And it consists of, it passed, consists of 3 members from each caucus, and then Denny Heck chairs the committee. And he's passionate about this as I am, because we have to, I believe we all work together. We're all Americans. It's okay to disagree. It's okay that we can do that, but we can be disagreeable. It's, you know, or we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I think that's important. And Denny Heck left Congress. He was in 10 years in Congress, and he left because he got tired of the fighting. Well, we're fighting over there too. And so it's something that I'm really passionate about. I'm on the committee, and I'm really working hard with some of my colleagues so we can find ways to pull together for the people of the state and work for the people. So anyway, there you go. I'll stop talking now because I've run out of things to say. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Questions?
I just want to say thank you for all you guys do. I know when I've reached out, you've all been very quick to respond to me, so I appreciate that, and I appreciate all the work you do for us. So we've always had good results when the city of Ephrata has needed things. So yeah, we appreciate your time and efforts for sure.
And I want to say thank you for meeting with me when I went over with Deanna from Moses for that. So it was nice meeting you all and seeing y'all in action.
Just a quick transportation question. How do they reconcile, the fact we have the highest gas tax in the state and seem to be so short on transportation revenue? Do other states just structure it differently in terms of tolls and taxes, or is there some means that we're just not competitive?
One thing is we have some of our requirements to what we build are higher, and then we have prevailing wage, which increases the cost of these highways substantially. So. But you can't, you can bring the subject up, it's not going there. Yeah. It's reality. So they don't look at how can we trim, how can we be more efficient with our dollars? It's not looked at, and it needs to be. Okay. And I get that part, but it's hard to convince them. I do have the chairs here on transportation, and we talk a lot. And it's not that he doesn't understand this stuff, and he's a pretty moderate guy. He really is. And I've had him over here, drove him around, showing him our challenges here, in our area, and he gets it. But he also faced with the caucus that thinks differently. So,
thank you.
So it's kind of knew it coming in. It was just a pleasure having all three of you in here, and we all seem to be kind of in this area anyway, rowing in the same direction, so to speak. But you have to deal with the one arm behind your back attitude. Are there any cracks over there? Is there any, what's history look like or the future look like?
I think it's changing. I think it's just a matter of how you present yourself to others. Like when I talk about the energy stuff, at the beginning they're just going, you just are going to vote no on our bills because you're a Republican. I would say, no, I'm a energy guy. And so it took 4 or 5 years, but after that, it was like, so tell me again about this bill. Do you like my bill? And they would ask me about their bills, even before they were presented. And I would just say, well, as an energy guy, I'm going to tell you, you've got an issue here, but something there. So depending on which committee you're on, it works a lot better in one committee than the other. And it always depends on the legislators, how they work with others. And that makes a big difference. But I can see energy environment world is changing because they can't meet what they want to do. You just can't do it. So I think that's really going to change a lot. And I think that's going to make a big difference when we talk about more gas tax and things like that, because we can get rid of some of those bills out there. But I think that they're really seeing the math, right? Now they understanding the math that they proposed to everybody, how much the tax was going to be, how much gas, things like that. So I see it changing in my world.
And I do a little bit. So I didn't mention I'm the caucus chair in the Senate Republicans. So that puts me number 2 in leadership in our caucus. And I've had a good relationship with the leader of the Democrat caucus. And we were elected the same year to the House. So we've both been in the legislature for the same amount of time. And we're now both in leadership. His policy, his bills, very few of them can I support. If you want to know that, he's from deep downtown Seattle. And so his constituents are very different than mine. But we have developed a relationship over the years to be able to talk to each other. And I think, that's what Lieutenant Governor Hill wants. We all do. I don't know too many people that don't want me talking to the other side to try to work out. That's our job, to work out the differences. And, I had dinner with the leader of the Democrats last week. It was just the 2 of us. And he, good conversation, wants to know what I'm leaning towards, what I'm hearing from my constituents. And, this article that Rep. Dent talked about, the tax or the Seattle Times editorial on the taxes. Seattle Times
Yeah.
is coming out and saying, what were you thinking? And they've done that more and more all the time. So I think there are starting to be a little bit of cracks that we can maybe put a wedge in. But we do have to be willing to talk to each other, walk across that aisle, walk across the floor of the Senate and the House and talk to people. The worst time, I've been in there a long time, but the worst time was during COVID because we did it all virtual. We couldn't have those hallway conversations about a bill or about a concern. And that was, I didn't feel very productive at all during that time. But I can see a few cracks do open.
Yeah, but there's cracks. They're there. It's there's people that lots of times those cracks you don't see it, but we kill bills that those people help us kill. Okay, because sometimes some of that bad stuff we need help so it never gets to the floor. Okay, it has to stop before it gets out of their caucus, out of their committee room. So they're there. There are people that would like to do more actually. But they have to face their caucus too. It's not like they're walking into a bunch of happy, cheery folks. Okay, so it's but we keep making headway. Like it's all about relationships. Relationships you can build with not only members of your caucus, but members of the other caucus, and the credibility that you have with them is all important. And so with that, we do find it. And I've got friends on the other side, and they help me a lot. They help me do things and. Give me a heads up or, kind of give me some ideas about how we could stop something, as long as I don't tell them where it came from. Right? and that's fair. It's like, I get that, but they're there. We're making headway. I'm excited about the city's health committee. Danny's pretty focused on doing this. I mean, and he's, And we have some good folks on it that are willing to kind of sit down and start, okay, how do we, when you got 6 from each party, right? How do we, let's start making some headway here. How do we do that, right? And so I think we can do that, but it just doesn't happen overnight, it just doesn't. It takes some time.
All right. Well, I think I speak for everybody that's here tonight. We really appreciate the three of you coming in and sharing that with us, because sometimes in a rural small town away from the matting world, we don't get that feedback, but we always have that little spark of that we got somebody that's supporting us, and we feel it, all three of you. That. Any other questions? Other than that, I think we'll.
I'd like to say, please reach out if you have issues anytime. Reach out. Yeah, we're busy. That's a job. We know when we took a job, please reach out. We'll make it work because we want to do the best we can for each and every one of you.
Great. Well,
For some reason, I miss an email or I miss a phone call. Reach out again.
Yeah.
There are times we'll have 400 new emails a day.
Ooh. Ooh.
So if for some reason I miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please reach out a second time.
We do feel your support.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we're not going to make you stay unless you want to. Nights can be long.
Oh, okay.
But if you're going to get gas, it's only about 4:30 at any gas tank that you look around, Ephrata.
And thank you for the treats.
Yeah.
That was quite nice.
You bet.
Take care.
Send me information about that meeting you were talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Thanks.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Hey.
Hi.
All right, Teresa, beat that.
I know. Wow.
Oh, sorry.
This is Teresa Atkinson with the Grant County Health District.
No, they didn't tell me I was following our state.
No, yeah, we don't do that.
Spent a little bit of time with them last week at an event. Good evening. I am Teresa Atkinson. I am the administrator of the Grant County Health District. I recognize a lot of faces in this room. And this is one of my annual visits to city councils where I talk about the work of the health district, what we've been kind of up to, and really answer questions about how we're funded and how we are operating in Grant County. So a lot of tonight's presentation is mostly about the structure of our agency, but if you have any questions about some of the work that we've been doing, by all means, please ask me along the way. Oh, did I turn it on the side? Sorry. That's okay. There we go. I see a blue light. Yeah.
Unplug the little dongle in the front and punch it back in.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, been there.
Okay. We can go ahead. So the Grant County Health District is your public health agency in Grant County. In Washington State, public health is governed by either a county health department, kind of the traditional way, or by a district. And back in this 1960s, the county commissioners at that time formed a district, kind of sharing governance with its cities and county commissioners. State legislation passed after COVID that changed the structure of our board, requiring us to bring community members onto our board. So basically what you see here is we have 4 elected officials and 4 community members. And then we have alternates for each of these positions. So Tom Harris out of Quincy, he's been with us for a number of years. He is our board chair, and he comes to us out of Quincy. And then we also have Deanna Martinez with Moses Lake. And then I go to the Council of Cities and Towns, and they give their recommendation when the terms are up. And our alternate will be up this year, as well as Tom Harris's position. So I'll be meeting with them here shortly. The other individuals go through an application process. They have to meet certain criteria. The consumer of public health is always a little confusing. It's not a customer of public health, like an on-site septic installer, but it's really somebody that has lived experiences and struggle. Or it could be a family that has had to go through rehab, mom that's been on WIC. So it's not just public health, the big public health, but public health community service in our community. So fortunately, we have Megan. She's sitting in that role as our alternate while we fill that position. And then we are one of the few local health jurisdictions, especially over here in Eastern Washington, that has a tribal representatives. Because we have tribal property in Grant County, we're required to reach out to the Colvilles. And Dr. Ball's been with us. Okanagan County doesn't even have a tribal representative, but she chose to sit on our board. She's a physician, and she's a great addition. There's just on your slide deck, there's our RCWs. So while we're local, we are governed a lot by state code, our food code, our on-site septic code. Our board can do more. We just can't do less than what the state requires. Okay, next one, thank you. I will not read this to you. You've seen it before, most of you have. But really, this is the structure of the health district. We do have an infrastructure that's in our emergency preparedness staff, our data, some workforce development, policy and advocacy. This group primarily reports to me and helps support much of the other parts of the agency, as well as our community, like coalitions might need some data, things like that. Obviously, our financial side of the shop and our front desk. Then healthy communities and families is a lot of times when you see us in the community. We work closely with food banks. We have a children with special health care needs program. This is where our harm reduction work. We work with local dentists to get children signed up that have Medicaid. It can be really challenging to find a dentist. So there's an enhancement program that we work with all across our county, hoping that one doesn't go away with some of the Medicaid cuts, but it's still there today. And then investigations and response. This is our communicable disease department, and they are also doing a lot of the emergency preparedness work for us. Environmental health, those are your food inspectors, your on-site folks, as well as they do a lot of work around keeping our lakes clean, blue-green algae. Sometimes you see things like that, and then a lot of pollution prevention. We actually get a grant to work with small generators of waste on how to properly dispose of those wastes. And it's not something we regulate, it's something we just educate on and help them find those resources. So just some of the activities we are really just enjoying getting back out into our communities through this community health improvement planning process and really looking at the data on what's keeping our communities healthy, where are our strengths, and then where are some of the areas that we need to work on. We're getting ready to adopt our community health improvement plan. Getting ready to take that to the board. We were just in your chamber council chambers a few weeks back with some community members, fine tuning that plan. We're primarily focusing around access to transportation, food insecurity, and behavioral health and mental health. So 3 subcommittees that have been working on it. So while our Board of Health will be adopting it, we definitely will be putting some investments in it. It's really a plan owned by the community. We'll be working with Renew on aspects of it, GTA on parts of it. It's the first one we've had in over 20 years because of funding restrictions. Our local health jurisdiction has not been able to actually get a plan to fruition. So we're really excited to see this get adopted and get to work. It's a 5-year plan. And so we'll have kind of milestones along the way, and we'll be tracking the data and seeing how we can do some improvements and small changes to really have addressing some of the root causes in our community. Obviously, behavioral health and mental health continue to be a concern, but we don't want to just be addressing the addiction or the problem, but the root causes. And this plan, a lot of that will be focusing on helping people to get to the services they need before they're in crisis. But we're not the experts in that. I mean, Renew does a lot of really great work, but we can help provide some infrastructure in the background to help support that and do some grant writing. And like I said, there's a bunch of other stuff in here. Obviously, wildfire smoke is always up in the forefront for us, and putting indoor air quality notifications has kind of been a newer area, kind of looking inside at our air quality when we're asking people to stay indoors. Is the air in our libraries safe? So we are monitoring all of our libraries' indoor air quality to make sure that when we're asking folks to get out of the smoke, that the air is truly better there. We're putting filters in those establishments, as well as long-term care facilities. So a lot of times we're behind the scenes helping our most vulnerable residents during times of response, such as wildfire smoke. Next slide. So how are we funded? This is my pie chart. I know the mayor has seen it probably 20 times as well. You can see the last 2 years, we really haven't changed a lot in our funding. That is changing at the end of 2025 when our federal funding is being reduced. When I first became administrator, the state pie, slice of the pie, and the federal were actually flip-flopped. But in the era of post-COVID, our state legislature has really stepped up and funded public health. When that excise tax went away many moons ago, public health went away. And we've been trying to rebuild ever since. And the state has really, really stepped up. Even this last painful legislative session, we did see a reduction. We did not see a reduction as severe as it could have been that some of our colleagues have seen. But that federal piece is declining with the loss of federal dollars. They're sunsetting. I've been told they're going to be sunsetting for now 3 years. And the funding bill keeps getting renewed, and we've been very frugal with it. So while others have spent theirs down because it was ending, we just spent what we needed, and we've been able to sustain a lot of our program work because it goes beyond just COVID. It can be around respiratory illnesses in general. And then it's been a nice asset for us just to be able to maintain some of that work. But we do know that those funds are going to be going away. We obviously have our licenses and our permits. If you build a house out in the county, you have an on-site permit that we go out and make sure that the septic system is going to be functioning appropriately for that establishment. And then we have a variety of other revenue sources that just help us to maintain our infrastructure. So when an inspector goes out to do some work in inspecting, say, restaurants up in North County, they're able to do some other program work, like our solid waste program, kind of maximizing our time in any area of the county. And then our local dollars, that is our county's contribution in addition to what our cities are contributing. So our state funds, I'll be brief here. You can see that FPHS, that's the Foundation of Public Health Services. Those are, it's not a grant from the state. It is infrastructure funding for us. It comes from very specific pots of work, and I have a whole slide dedicated to that. And then we do get funding for our syringe services program. That's the syndemic prevention services. Marijuana and tobacco prevention is still a very important body of work. I thought those funds are going to go away with this last session, and it's actually level funding for the most part. And then the Public Health Assistance Fund is very similar to FPHS. It's just, that was all we used to get from the state prior to FPHS. So the other category just lists the grants that we get for that 12%. Next slide. So Foundation of Public Health. I do have to work within buckets, but it's not like a grant where I'm told exactly what we have to do with those dollars. I have a lot of flexibility to meet the community where they need us to work. I can't do direct services. That's the main challenge that we are faced with. We can work on the infrastructure, we can work on service providers. We just cannot use these dollars for that. This is intended for public health services in the community. These are not contracted out for others to do. It's really building the infrastructure so that every community in our state has some portion of this that meets kind of about the size of where their community is at. So for the size of Grant County, we're considered a mid-sized local health jurisdiction. We're funded pretty similar. Those dollars are allocated through a subcommittee. I was very fortunate. I sat on that subcommittee for 7 years, and they're the ones that do the allocations. So governors change, secretaries of health change, but it's the 4 sectors of the public health system, the state, local, tribal, and state board of health that determine how those funds are allocated. Next slide. And then federal, our maternal child health block grant, that's our children with special health care needs program and our breastfeeding coalition work. We do get some Medicaid dollars. That's the administrative match. I haven't heard yet what is going to happen with that pot, but we are continuing to be concerned. COVID and that's going away. And community care coordination. This is more of a direct service. We help families get access to services. So if we have, for example, a tuberculosis patient that needs access to food, we're not the ones buying the food, but we're providing those services for them, really creating a whole network across Grant County, but also North Central Washington. We are in, at times, a service desert when it comes to getting folks the services they need. So it's rather than having 10 care coordinators doing the same thing, it's each of them kind of working in their area of expertise and working across with one another and kind of doing that warm handoff. It's a newer program. We were fortunate to get it started through COVID dollars when people were home in isolation with COVID, and now it's evolving into other services. Next slide. So our local funding. So who locally is helping us out here? The county does provide an allocation to us. They have their regular, just our general fund they provide us, as well as TB control. It's the county that's responsible for tuberculosis control, but we're the provider of that. We're not doing direct patient services, but we do go see those individuals every single day to observe them taking their medications and making sure they're doing well. They have their primary care physician. This is about keeping you all safe. So that's the one time we get involved, is protecting our patient, the entire community, but also helping this person navigate the healthcare system. We do get a tipping fee from the county that contributes to our solid waste program. And then our cities. All of our cities are contributing with the exception of 3. It's all varying amounts. As you know, when you got the letter from me a couple weeks ago, it's really wherever the cities feel that they can contribute. We do ask for $3 per individual. The county provides us our facilities at no cost to us, so that 37% from the county, if I had to pay rent and utilities and all that, would be quite a bit more. So it is a very generous contribution from our county commissioners as well. That city's helping us. Those are the flexible dollars for our communicable disease program. When our fees don't cover all the services that we're able to provide, that's how I backfill some of those programs and work. Our wildfire response work sometimes falls under this category as well. So it is kind of fluid based on where those gaps are throughout the year. So while it's not a large part of our budget, it is the flexible dollars that we are able to circle back with. In your packet, you'll see our city reports. You should be getting them through email as well, but part of that interlocal agreement between our cities and the health districts is I started doing quarterly reports. So you could see what we were doing in your community and the county specifically. It was a little challenging at first to figure out exactly how to do it. So I know it's a lot of data, but it really just demonstrates we're so often behind the scenes, and oftentimes hearing from elected officials, we don't know what you do, or we never see you in our community. A lot of times we're at the festival before you're there, making sure that the food booths are ready to go. We're out in community fairs and events, and we're trying to be more visible so folks know that we're there. but we could be the ones that are oftentimes, like I said, there before the event even starts. So you get to see that report. Please review that. As long as your city's still contributing to us, we only provide that report to the cities that are contributing financially because it is that shared responsibility. And if you see something that we're doing in another community, you want to know why we're not doing it in yours, that's an opportunity for you to reach out, and then we can see what we can do to do that. And I have started hearing from some of our council members and the county commissioners about some of the work that they're doing in our. We'll do it this year, but we could potentially get that rolled in the future. And cities that are contributing to us kind of have that relationship with us. It's a little bit different than those that are not contributing to us. Doesn't mean we don't go. We still have a responsibility. It's just that shared governance, even though you don't get to sit on our board necessarily anymore, you still have the opportunity to weigh in on the programs that we're providing. So, like I said, I know you've recently received the letter from the health district in the interlocal agreement asking for $3 per resident for our 2026. I am in budgeting process, I'm sure as you are as well. And we're starting to decline in our funding just like everybody else. So I know it's a big ask. We do our very best to be as frugal as we possibly can and stretch every dollar that comes into our health district because we know folks have worked really hard to make their own wages and livings, and we just want to be there to help them provide a healthy and safe environment for them and their families. So I think that's it. I think this is the crew. And one more is just some of the events. And you all know how to get a hold of me.
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
So just a quick question. Grant County is a huge county. Just duh. How many people do you have working for you and spread out throughout this?
Yeah, so we went into COVID with 22 employees. That included myself and Dr. Breshny. And we have a part-time health officer. And now we're just over 40. We got almost up to 50 a few years ago, and we have been absorbing positions over the last few years. But feeling pretty comfortable with 40. Most of our staff reside between Quincy, Ephrata, and Othello, but we do have some that going up. That's why it's so important when they travel that they're able to take other work with them. Or we're taking, we need to get masks delivered up north, and somebody's doing food inspections. You know, rather than them going their separate ways, we're always asking if somebody can kind of help carry that load. But it is important to get out in the community and be present. And so sometimes it just costs more to do our programs in some of the more outlying areas. I'd love to have 2 offices, but I know that's really expensive. And that would be more manpower that wouldn't be out in the community, it'd be in an office. So we just keep doing what we can do to get out as far as we can in the community.
Fortunately or unfortunately, part of the perception of the public is if you're doing your job and the entities that you're working with are doing their job, we didn't hear about it.
Yeah.
The glaring spotlights are when a function or a restaurant or whatever violates policies and procedures and stuff like that. And when we do see that, for some people it's a ooh darn, but for some of the other people is good. The accountability is there and the expectation is there. And as somebody who is a real small part of that $3, I really appreciate what you're doing. And it'd be nice if we never heard from you and just things that happen. But unfortunately, it does happen. That's Grant County's huge.
And we're 24/7. We carry a duty phone. We have a rotation we go through, and so when that phone rings, sometimes we can wait till Monday, but a lot of times it's what do we need to do to get through the weekend or the evening.
Right. When you get that surprise call that a restaurant showed up at whatever.
Yeah, there's that too.
Any questions from council?
I have a question. Well, first I want to make a statement. One of the things that I've appreciated about your team, I work with nonprofits a lot in my day job, and sometimes I need perspective on how things like should work versus what they're doing. And nothing against them, but resources are tight and trying to figure things out. So making recommendations as far as risk goes has been really helpful. And your team's always very helpful to say, this is how, we recommend you guys do this for public safety. So thank you to your team and to you for creating that structure and access for people like me who are just trying to learn. I have two questions. I guess the first one, I'm not really sure if it's for you or for Kristen. What's our current per person rate? You're asking? Same. Okay, great. Thank you.
Our population has gone up by 90 people.
Okay.
So it would be 29,745.
Roughly flat then. That's great. Okay. And then my second question, on one of your early slides on activities, you had a bullet point in there talking about surveying the unhoused. And I just have a question for you on I guess, what is the health district's role in serving those that are unhoused or with housing insecurity, especially if you can't do direct services on everything? And I realize that was just for that particular pot of money. But can you talk a little bit about kind of what your role would be with those that are unhoused, both in obviously the Ephrata areas where I'm focused, but I'm sure it's a broader problem that you're dealing with.
So that is a specific project that really kind of emerged out of some of the issues going on in Moses Lake. But the data isn't very solid and we don't know. So we're making big decisions based on some assumptions. And public health, that we really struggle with that. We want to see the data and what are the needs. And so I approached UW about partnering with us to do an unhoused survey. They're going to take those components that are in that point in time count that they do in the county. They do it in January. But they happens all across state and it's a requirement for their funding. We have those components built in, but then there's additional questions. And they've been doing it in rural parts of King County because homelessness is not just in Seattle. We have other parts there. And we'll be able to work with collecting some data, but also giving them some resources. So it's not just asking questions of somebody that's unhoused and then say, have a nice day. We're going to be providing gift cards to them and working with organizations like Renew to say, like, if they needed something today, how can we help them? And then we're going to come back through and we're going to say, if you bring a friend, we'll have a gift certificate for you as well as for your friend. So that we're hopefully able to provide some relief for them at that point in time, in addition to getting good data to help our communities come up with some plans. I don't know of a city that's really solved homelessness yet. A lot of it has to do with housing. We're not building houses in public health, but we're providing that data and trying to get it in front of the individuals that are making those decisions and to help. It'll also help us with probably some grant writing as well. And I hope to be able to repeat it. The first time it's going to be expensive because I'm hiring UW to come in, but we're using their product, their analysis, and I'm hoping my staff will be able to duplicate it so we can kind of continue to do this and learn. It'll be interesting with the sleep center closing, what has changed. I didn't get to do it before it had closed. We're going to be doing it next spring. But nonetheless, I think it'll support us and we need to get around the county. And so while it'll help us with that specific issue we had in Moses Lake, we will be doing little pods around the whole county and hopefully be able to get enough data to be able to say, hey, Freddie, here's what we learned in your community. Some of them will be too small to really form any opinions, so we can see the larger scheme of it. Get that information out there.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really great. I think an often overlooked piece of homelessness and housing insecurity is rural areas. Everybody pictures the metropolitan people you see on the street. Is not always that problem. So I think that the data in particular, even if you have to broadly apply it into a countywide average or something like that to help with decisions and ideally some, remedy would be ideal. But
it might help us get some attention too with, state and federal resources is one of my hopes for it too. Being able to tell their story, they oftentimes can, and where we can be a voice for the unhoused in our community. It's important to me. I live here. I grew up here. I see the change in our community too. So how can we be a small part of it? And we'll see. So it will. I was hoping. I'm trying to do that, so it'll take time. But we could have done it this fall, but at this point, it's getting cold. So let's wait till spring when folks are starting to reemerge.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Well, Teresa, we appreciate on busy life that you got going on right now. We appreciate you coming over and taking time to explain that to us and make us feel bad about only giving $3.
Oh, my goodness.
But we'll be okay with that. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
And enjoy your Saturday.
Take care.
All right. Nobody signed up for public comments, so we'll move on. Need a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Moved.
I think so.
I missed them. One more presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry. We forgot. Been sitting here all night wondering if this thing would ever end. Great. Sorry, the Department of Transportation SR 28 about our completed roundabout.
No.
New roundabout. We'll take that one too.
I'm sorry. You'll see the notes.
Yeah, I have my notes.
Okay.
This is the one on in.
I don't have that long of a presentation, so that's good news.
Well, sure. Now you're a hero.
All right. Well, first, I'd like to thank the city of Ephrata for allowing us to meet with you tonight and to show us a new project, something that has come up very recently. We are basically announcing the start of our pre-design for a roundabout at SR 28 and B Road Northwest and Alder Street. So right at the northeast side of town. Next. So this particular project site's been selected through WashDOT's I-2 Safety Improvement Program. Most of the projects I work on are preservation projects. So it's really, this is a different bucket that we're pulling from, and it's something exciting and newer to work on other than just roadway preservation. So we do know that this is it's a high-speed controlled intersection. When we were looking at alternatives as far as what treatment we would have for this intersection, signalized treatment was kind of ruled out because all it would do at a high-speed intersection would transfer the type of collisions from angled collisions to rear-end collisions. Our data shows that we don't really see a drop in the frequency, it's just the type of collisions. So a roundabout was opted because it does slow traffic down through the intersections. And so if there is a collision, it would be of a something less intensity at a lower speed. However, that's really all I have to say about the roundabout. My primary function at WashDOT is I'm the principal multimodal planner for the North Central region. And so what I look at are pedestrians and bicycles and other modes of traffic, not just vehicles. And so my primary objective for this project is to address pedestrian movement through this intersection. We do have an RCW that compels us to apply complete streets analysis for projects that meet certain thresholds. And so this one met that threshold, and that is it's in a population center, so it's within the city limits, or at least part of it is. And it will also have a project cost exceeding $500,000. So that means that I now become involved and I need to look at pedestrian connectivity to this project. And next one. Since 2022, WashDOT has developed metrics to evaluate existing proposed facilities to incorporate the design for all users, and that is complete streets. The most common metric we use is called level traffic stress, and there are two of these that we apply. One is your bicycle level of traffic stress, and the other is your pedestrian level of traffic stress. For a project like this, there's not a whole lot of linear facilities that that metric could apply to. So instead, we would be looking at our intersection criteria. And for pedestrians, there are 6 criteria to apply in design. And these include exposure, speed, delay, conspicuity, predictability, separation of space, and separation of time. So right now, this project is in pre-design. We are working with the concept of a single lane roundabout. And as previously stated, the crossing elements will need to accommodate bicycle and pedestrians per our complete streets requirements. And the purpose of our outreach is to identify, clarify, or be informed of pedestrian movements through this intersection. There are 4 questions that we have kind of come up with. Those will help us answer how to best apply the functional characteristics to accommodate pedestrian and bicycle use. So the first question I would have would be, how do bikes and pedestrians currently use this intersection? And that question is really geared to help us understand where and what improvements we would like to evaluate. The second question would be, does the local agency have plans, roadway, active transportation, trails, adjacent land uses, anything that may be impacted or will be impacted by this roundabout? The third question is, are there any local concerns regarding this intersection? Things that maybe I don't have access to, data points that, or observations, near misses, things that are not recorded that I cannot see back in my office. And that's why we want to make the effort to come to your communities. And then the last question is, what other feedback can we obtain from local everyday users? What's not formally captured or readily available, unreported issues, incidents, near misses, personal experiences through this intersection. All of those are important for us and go in to help us developing a design alternative. Okay. So when preparing to recommendations for this concept plan, we do start looking at the answers to the questions, responses to the questions that we presented this evening. The first 2 kind of reflect the current state of the intersection. We initially seek to address the questions by researching existing plans, studies, and any other documentation that we have access to. So we know that there's a bike lane on Aller Street Northwest that comes up to this intersection. It's hard to describe, but the shoulder width does kind of deteriorate, and the bike lane kind of disappears as you reach that intersection. That's something that we actually want to connect to your bike path and have it continue all the way through it. So one of our strong desires is to separate these modes of traffic, so a vehicle does not have to worry about bicycles in their lane, or pedestrians don't have to worry about walking on the street, and provide those facilities for each classification of user. We are also looking at trip generators. We've got the Canada Rail Station, have a few state agency offices there, including one of our own maintenance sheds, which is pretty close by. But Fish and Wildlife has a facility nearby as well. Various, the light industrial uses around the area. It's not our intent to impact any businesses. And if there are any plans in place or applications that for development in this area, we would at least like to know how they're connecting to the roadway system, just in case this roundabout or whatever we do may risk impact. We do know that Grant County, on the Grant County side of this intersection, it's mainly zoned light residential or large lot residential. They've got couple 1 acre housing minimum lot sizes, 5 acre lot sizes, and then there's some mobile homes that are kind of north of this intersection as well. And all this information or in observations that we have are things that are putting together a picture of how pedestrians move through this intersection. But that information is useful, and it can be used to create assumptions of pedestrian movement. But as part of our engagement, I think the best source of information that we can obtain actually comes from the local community. We are fortunate enough to have that maintenance facility near this location, so I do have, you know, the kind of the inside connection to locals that I don't have in other cities. But the personnel that work there have been providing valuable insight and observations through this intersection. But I want to extend that opportunity for the city in its greater capacity to have that same opportunity to provide us with information. Making sure I'm saying everything I need to say. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so those are the first two questions. The last two questions really center around why we value our, you know, just the local concerns. And really the review of published documentation can only get us so far. The remaining questions, we seek to expand our understanding of this intersection. There's a lot of data at WashDOT that I get to sift through, and a lot of it is not the best data to sift through. A lot of it is hard data to sift through, and there's a lot of incomplete data, especially in my role when it comes to bicycles and pedestrians. I can figure out what the traffic counts are in 2024, and I can make assumptions based on that, but I have no idea how many pedestrians pass through this facility. As an agency, this is something that we are expanding on, our capacity and facilities to count pedestrians and bicycle users, but it has not reached this far out yet. So that's pretty much it. Through this process, I do plan to remain in contact with your city staff. They've been very helpful in identifying some of their observations and uses through this intersection. We're very enthusiastic about working with our local jurisdictions for projects like these. It's not every day that we get to come out to your community, enjoy a good dinner, and then meet with you and the city council and to talk about concerns of an up and coming project. And we're also trying to kind of change the format on how we reach out and when we reach out. So I did have a concept plan in one of those other slides, but that is considered a quick sketch, even though to me it looks like I can go out and start building it right now. But right now we're so early in the process, we're still trying to figure out the concept of this roundabout. And in my experience working with city councils, and developers, and county commissioners, one of the complaints I've always heard from the public is that we never got a chance to provide input on this. You're showing us a site plan that's going to be decided on tonight, and we just didn't have the time to sit down and review. And so part of rolling back when we start engaging with the community, it was one of our concerns that we don't want that comment coming up anytime. So we want to give ample opportunity while we're in the design phase, while we're in the pre-design phase, and while we're in the conception stage, for anybody to provide us with input on these types of projects. This one's running pretty quickly. Design is slated to start at 26 or 2026, with construction probably in 28 at this time. Those are estimation dates, and like I said, I'm not 100% confident of those, but those dates may change anytime. I do know that this project is funded, so it's pretty, I mean, there's very little that can happen on my end this early on, which is why I feel confident talking about it. So yeah, we are here to get as much information as possible, information that we don't have, information that would help us design this roundabout to fit your community needs. And so that's why we're here. This is also not the only, go to the next slide. This is not the only engagement event that we have planned. This was meant as an introduction to this project and this process. And just to basically state that this is going to be, the approach to this is different than what you may have seen before from WashDOT. So I've got my contact information there. I know I asked 4 questions, and those will be repeated as we go on through our engagement cycle. But those are kind of our questions that help us guide the discussion and how to build this concept, build this design alternative. My email's up there, phone number's up there. I will tell you, email is probably the best way. I will answer the phone if I see it ringing, but email I'm pretty much connected to anytime I'm on the clock. If I do miss a call or if I do miss an email, I will be reaching out and returning a call. Like I said, I do plan on meeting with the city staff. As further we get along in the alternative selection, would also love to come back and describe the process, what we've accomplished, and what we have for you. And with that, I think I hit on everything.
Well, we're a little surprised here. You know, this is our 3rd roundabout that we've been involved with over the last X amount of years. And each time we're finding out that the pre-discussion is becoming greater and of more importance. And it really kind of sets the foundation for the educational purpose that's behind it, and also the community reaction that we're getting and will be getting when this comes out. So having you come over here and explain this to us, we really appreciate that. And I think based on what we're hearing around the basin within the last maybe month or so, roundabout, that's a quick economical fix for potential problems that could be down the road, and we look forward to working with that. That's great. Any other questions or?
I appreciate your, I guess, the opportunity to have a conversation about it. I appreciate that the adjustment to be sure the community can participate. The plan, I guess, to be sure that we have accessible trails and bike routes and things. I wish Bill was here because we have people on staff who are really avid bikers. And I appreciate that you're going to work with staff. I think that's really important, especially because they have a different perspective. And some of them are really active, but those of us who have, family or friends, it's not always safe route. So I appreciate that you're looking at these things. A lot of appreciation in this direction. So.
To your point, and I think I skipped over this in my notes, it is extremely important to us to meet with the local agencies.
Yeah.
There are maintenance issues that of course we need to discuss. And there are your future plans for the city growth that we need to consider. Because when we build this is it's going to be there for 50, 100 years.
Yeah.
And we want to make sure that we're at least putting some thought into anticipating future land use.
That's great.
And use of the roundabout itself.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I know that as Josh works through different parks plans, and we consider what those would be into the future. The trails and things are always a consideration. So how do we work together to be sure that we're providing something long term and maintainable? So, yeah.
I'm always at the risk of being labeled the anti-cyclist of the group here, but one of the things I've struggled with as we've accommodated the cyclists more and more with increased bike lanes and stuff like that is confusion as to the rules and regulations in practice. So like our new road on Nat Washington Ways got 2 regular lanes with 2 adjacent bike lanes. the drivers will behave with the rules and mentality of a 2-lane road. The cyclists behave with the rules and mentality of a 4-lane road, which comes into conflict. I think that kind of comes to a real head at some of the roundabouts where people are still getting used to this increased concept of what's going on there. It wasn't really clear how this will be laid out, but if you have bike lanes, I think you run into the risk of, if cyclists behave like a vehicle, they're going to create increased danger. If they behave like a pedestrian and use the island, for, a safe crossing, they're going to create confusion. What's the general consensus on the best recipe for that?
So our desire is to separate these modes. I think it's easier and safer to mix bicycles and pedestrians. In fact, we have facilities that are designed for that. And it be my personal belief that mixing bicycles and vehicles, especially even though it is a roundabout, it's intended for low speed to transition through it. It's not on a low speed road. It is a high speed road. So acknowledging that there needs to be more thought put into how we're separating these modes of traffic, and what makes it safe for a pedestrian to cross. And that could be anything. We're still in the conceptual phase right now, and we have put some thought into it. My big thing is mainly education. As a pedestrian, when you approach a roundabout like this, you generally can't see what's happening, right? There are vehicles, constant travel. Even on normal intersections, you have to have your head on a swivel. But by providing separation, that is going to establish a sense of structure as you enter the roundabout. The other thing we're looking at is also adding a little bit of stacking distance outside of the roundabout. So if somebody is crossing, it's a single lane that they have to cross because we'll have a refuge island in the middle. But a car could stack in and wait for that person to cross without clogging up the rest of the roundabout. So those are certainly concepts that we're looking into. Some of the best ideas, though, do come from the community. So if there are things that you see in other cities, statewide, outside of the state, wherever, that you want to draw attention to us, our design manual allows us some flexibility in that. So if we find a better alternative, we can incorporate that.
Is this an element that's considered in every roundabout?
I'm sorry?
I forget what you called it, the complete streets criteria, is that considered in every roundabout build? Or is this a focused effort in this particular one?
So Complete Streets has it has different requirements, but there are two main requirements that we look at. The first, that it has to be within a population center.
Oh.
And that's either an incorporated city or a census designated place. And so if an intersection is within that area, then we look at the next criteria, which is, well, what is the total project cost? Most roundabout, I can't say every roundabouts will require complete streets, but those within city centers and those that have a project cost totaling as of August 1st, $1 million or more, will require some complete streets analysis. It's also possible that even through the complete streets analysis that pedestrian facilities were considered not applicable to that roundabout or to that street. Or maybe there's an alternate route or an alternate trail that we can direct people to. But the context is in this roundabout is that, yes, we are looking at, pedestrian connectivity. To answer your question, every roundabout that meets those criteria, every roundabout that's within a city will probably meet the criteria of exceeding $1 million. Even a small roundabout, I think, comes out a minimum of 2 million. And that's at just a simple circle. The larger roundabouts with single lane or compact, or you go up to multi-lane roundabouts, have significantly more cost. So I don't want to say yes, because there may be a scenario that complete streets wouldn't be required.
Well, that helps.
But with those two criteria, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, sir. We look forward to meeting you for the rest of 2 or 3 years.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a nice evening.
Thank you.
You too.
You mean shot. No? Okay. We'll start over. Need a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Thanks, Matt. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Phil. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Items for council action, A, the R25071 has been removed, so we move to B. The R25068 approval of the amended employment agreement with the city administrator.
So before you is a resolution adopting a amended employment agreement with your city administrator after a 2-year period of tenure with the city. Ray came to the mayor, just identifying certain areas that he wanted clarification on in the contract. So working with the mayor and Ray, we've negotiated that revised contract. Again, there's no change in salary. It's really just clarification of terms. It does add the $500 stipend for a personal vehicle instead of having to acquire a city vehicle for his use. But the effective date is January 1 of this agreement, so that wouldn't come into any impact on your current budget, the 2026 budget. So that we would recommend approval of the agreement unless there's any questions.
Need a motion to approve R25068, the amended employment agreement with the city administrator.
So moved.
Whoa,
Second.
okay. You figure that out, Katie.
We don't like you that much, Ray.
That's the most excited they've been all night. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Passes. 2569, the city council goals. Oh, sorry.
As council, I'm sure can recall, we spent 4 glorious evenings together over the past 2 weeks, which time we had a state of the city update from each of the department heads, talked about issues, concerns, and set goals, vision statement, mission statement, well. So those are in front of you for your adoption. And again, sometimes people underplay the value of these things. They put them on a wall and that's where they sit. But I promise you that we refer to these with all of our decision making and it guides everything that we do every day, particularly this time of year as we're formulating a budget. So
Just need a motion to accept 2569, the city council goals.
Moved.
Second.
Q. Questions?
I just want to make one comment. I appreciate that these are not numbered in priority order. I know we talked about that a little bit during the workshops, but I do think it's important that citizens realize these are of equal importance and consideration as we go through working on different priorities for the year.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. 2570, the ICAC agreement.
Good evening.
Oh,
So hopefully this is a little shorter than others. Essentially, ICAC is the Internet Crimes Against Children, and this is the task force. This is really a housekeeping measure. We've been a member of the task force for years. They've redone their interagency agreement, so we're hoping to continue our work with ICAC and receive the support and services that we get through with the Seattle Police Department and other agencies to help investigate and go through digital data and all the stuff that goes along with internet crimes. So looking for a motion to adopt number 70 for 2025, the interagency agreement between the Washington State Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force acting through the City of Seattle Police Department and the Ephrata Police Department as proposed.
motion to approve the motion.
Moved.
Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Questions?
Yeah, I guess when you receive a tip, explain to explain to me kind of how that's filtered through the department and who receives
Yeah, I usually
do that work?
a detective that's signed up and gone through with ICAC, and then it's received by that detective and then processed. Currently, we don't have a detective, so I don't think they're sending us any of the tips at the current time because we don't have that contact.
I guess, do you know where that information would be sent to then if there was a child being victimized in this area?
We've had, decrease in staffing, and we don't have the detective that's in contact with the ICAC task force. Generally, our neighboring agencies help carry the load. We've had cases that have been Ephrata cases that Moses Lake has gotten the information on, and then we collaborate together to get after and investigate it.
So to follow up on that, when do you envision having that detective's position filled?
Well, we have interviews tomorrow to
Okay, well that's good, timely.
fill. So,
Okay.
and then we've got one in the academy. So we're hoping, but as the timelines from our presentations a couple of weeks ago, it's almost a year before we can get people trained. So anyway, so we're hoping, hopefully within the year we can get somebody in the detective spot.
I guess at how long do you wait before you don't fill a position? I mean, you had a homicide in the city X amount of weeks ago that your agency wasn't able to handle. Children potentially being victimized that you're not receiving the information on and don't have the people to investigate it. I guess how long do you go without investigating certain crimes for manpower reasons?
Well, I don't know how you would investigate a crime if you don't have the manpower to investigate it. If they did reach out, we'd have to handle it at the patrol level. So it's not that we can't investigate. We don't have a designated detective at the current time. But I don't know how I can fill shifts and fit. We've been at minimums for 2 weeks. If I pull one of those members out, now I'm in violation of my contract with the union to hit those minimums. And then with the detective, I'm short-staffed even more. So I guess I don't know how I can fill that if I don't have the resources to fill the position.
So if a tip came in, I guess, would you assign it to a patrol deputy, or would you or a patrol officer, or would you just say, we don't have the staffing, sorry, victim, your incident is not going to be investigated?
Doing with our other crimes, stuff that would usually go to a detective, we've been disseminating out and handling it at the patrol level.
Okay, thank you for that.
Well,
Are there interagency agreements for support when you're shorthanded like this? And I guess maybe that's sort of what you were getting at too, or what you've asked. I'm sorry if I'm repeating, but I'm just wondering, like, at what point does the sheriff's office, for instance, step in, or Moses Lake, or I don't know, whoever else you'd use, but whatever agencies, similar to like what Jeremy would have to do if he needed mutual aid from someone, if we had all of our trucks down or something.
Right.
How does that work with law enforcement?
We work in conjunction. We reach out and we help each other almost on a daily basis. So do we have an interlocal that if I get to a certain staffing level that deputies are going to work in Ephrata? I don't.
Okay.
Historically, what happens is the sheriff's office acts as the big brother to many agencies.
And steps in for things?
The homicide is a classic example of not having a person to adequately spend time doing that case. And a phone call was made to bigger agencies to supply investigative resources.
Well, and here we have CBIT, so which is a multi-agency investigative team.
And do we have access to that?
Yes.
And do they have like obligation to come here if we were to have something like this happen?
That's the agreement that's been made, yes.
So, sorry to have to ask it this way, but what's the point of this then? Like, I don't understand what ICAC, because my understanding is it says ICAC task force resources, provide ICAC task force resources and expertise. But if we don't have that, like what is our role with this then?
Mainly, we receive those services through the task force. We don't have the ability within the Ephrata Police Department to go through phone data, per instance.
So we have access to more resources as a result of this. So it helps even if we have some other agencies step in so that we can, not to use the word investigate, but so we can address reports or incidents that happen.
Correct.
Are you the only department that has shortages that has to reach out to other people?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
So basically what you're saying here is through this agreement, it kind of builds up a foundation to allow a lot of the other issues that we're talking about to take place and to be active within, right?
Yeah, it really is kind of a force multiplier, and it gives us access to more resources to further investigations.
All right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, we've passed my bedtime, so we do have a motion and a second on this, right? Okay, great. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thank you, everybody. We're now going to slip into a closed session where we're going to discuss RCW 42.3. No action will be taken afterwards. So the rest of you can.
So you can actually adjourn.
Oh. Okay, thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Leave this.
Boy. Need to set a time on that, or is it?
Look like it.
Okay.
Closed versus executive.